그래서 왜 지게 동아 나 조금 제할이야. 그래서 지게 가상 쉬어야될 당한저 가르려서네 이 동아 지 삼스당 다소다 소소 동아기 또 제바지야체 네 지 삼다야들이야 제바지야의 동아기에 삼다야다 주 삼다야체 나디 삼다나들라 소소 온보 잡든기 토네 안내지 소소기 도시네 지게 삼 공고리스 나디 기부진다 투모 람이진바 냠는 집에 갑라 네 기부 충분히야서 시시비 투모에 람이진바 네 수름 니주 얼마 미게 주봉 수름 소야다 미다발라서 고메디기야 도스네 기부진에 람이는 약소 소에 냠는 지고리에서지 어도시 나는 저게 다 소소기 뉴베 여바이나 아니 델리아 아니 지 곰비 갑라 안데 롱망보도 신의 슝디나네 손셰디네 손으로 차사도 신의 삼다 고미하다 데네기 뭐 직소소 데네 뉴바마다나 아니 디소 롱디 바디기 파 샤시 삼당 말해서지 어도시 아니 도나 데네기 곰비 갑리네 안지기 셈디 미발의 제주도 샤지 공부리마도 안지 파 남해제다 이구하다 무바다 진화라서 봐 데네게 원도 마다시 고래 데네 따와이나 근데 지게 냠네디하고 용 말해서 지 가상도 디고 쉬버라다.
Good morning. So last night we continued to look at the presentation on the Four Noble Truths, in particular that of true sufferings. We saw that the way to meditate on this first of the Noble Truths, true sufferings, is to meditate with analysis using one's intelligence. So when meditating on true sufferings, we saw that we look at the sufferings both in a general sense and those in a particular sense. The general sense, the text presents the eightfold and then the sixfold divisions of suffering, and then the particular sense, namely the sufferings of the realms individually. So this is what one should meditate on with analysis when one's meditating on true sufferings. And the meditations of the trainings that of a being of intermediate capacity, of which true sufferings is one, need to be done in conjunction with those trainings which are shared with a practitioner of initial capacity, in particular that of ethical restraint and impermanence. And then last night we also looked at that when one meditates, for that meditation to be successful, to be transformative, to lead to the accomplishment of one's aims, one needs to meditate without distraction arising from agitation or excitement, as well as without a mind that is succumbing to sleep, to lethargy or laxity.
난 내내게 아달 아주게 니무 진화다 와도 마다와지 공고래 디마고만나 아니 지게 좀 돼하고 퉁 말 거면하고 용 말해서 송하다 아델이야 난 가사 전주기 롱다와와 어디나신 디레 다 롱들이야 타바침볼라 난 타바침볼은 대바 공비게 돌래장 리기보 남란 디양 디다라 장슈선바 남기 타바침볼라 대바 타바침볼을 주와 강지야 롱 대탐제니 넘버는 마예외 셈기 되나 최양다바 삼발을 주와 리바 자오 시송소 시송베치로스.
We concluded then last night on page 157 with a verse from Shantideva's engaging in the Bodhisattva's way of life. And this again is made the point that one needs to meditate with a mind that's undistracted, as well as a mind that is not lethargic or lax or asleep. So now continuing with at the bottom of page 157 with a sutra quotation from the Sutra of Cultivating Faith in the Mahayana. So read it. This just needs to be a small change in the word order in the second line. Child of the lineage, this enumeration shows that in this manner, faith in the in the Mahayana of Bodhisattvas and anything that springs from the Mahayana spring from reflecting correctly about the meaning and the Dharma with a mind that is utterly undistracted.
Number my sim and digi and the duenda chuyanda per jungale jeti dun sambali jungare se sunwa that di dunda jeshe de jirim shitin ma sungore dela number my we semni migiwi kasakiwi migbale shendo miyawa yins sandinan ba tabachim gajiero tamje number my we sim sedi donda kare sen number mayawa sedi dangan juge Gombe Kabla, Sem de Kewala, Miba Kewachil, Mibamato, Nikewa Maimba, and Lumadana, and the chat, the Kondrokia, the Nomoje, Yulia, some Matawache, and Miba de Kewachil, Mido Gomkuri, some Koreas, and number maybe Sem Ni, that Karsene, Timi Yuti, Kewachil, Mihores, Kewale Share, and the Mikio Mares, some Koreas, then that it is number my Sem Seti.
The meaning of this sutra quotation in brief is that in order for the practitioner to achieve the purpose or the aim of their meditation, they need to meditate with a concentrated mind, a mind of single point of concentration through faith in the Mahayana of Bodhisattvas. So over the page, Lama Tsongkhapa, then at the top of page 158, he then explains some of the key points in the sutra quotation. So looking at the first sentence, here, a mind that is utterly undistracted is a mind that does not stray towards something other than its virtuous object. So as we looked at last night, when one engages in meditation, one needs to meditate just on the virtuous topic that one has selected and not allow the mind to wander elsewhere, even to another virtuous topic, and certainly not to a non-virtuous or neutral topic, unspecified topic. So therefore, one should stay on the chosen virtuous topic.
Ziji do shine de la gogwa yo mare so da dang ju da samdane number me sim de shine men ro sam be do yong si ruwa da din na de number me sim shine yong gre shine mai ba yong gre ji sa don da la khare so number me sim se di mi ba de number me ya sim se di gewa ji li mi ne gewa le shen ne mi gewa da lu ma da la so ba sim ma ta wa je gewa ji li mi ti be lo de la number me wa sim se da de
Furthermore, the usage of this terminology, utterly distracted, indicates that it's not necessarily referring to a mind of calm abiding, but that one needs to meditate on the chosen virtuous object without distraction. If done with calm abiding, that would be excellent, but not necessarily with calm abiding.
Nyamne je lam de ye chero ko je chero ko ten de ye chero je dan chero mang bu yong lo ta di da de kap di che se de karasen sing de ko go yes ben din shi den bi do sik do yo lo sik ko ron le che se di ko go yes si den na sik se de den se de da sik di do di sun che ge don da di ge so ben din shi den bi do di ko ron ne sik ti che den se de da di din shi den bi jue ja Karsore, Dunga Tempado Kunjatebo Hotel Lam Jesed, Odusine, Shakres, Donna City said. She's on Che said, the Injimijan of the Che said that Lam Yamlet, and the Jigge, Jolam, Solam, Jolam, Dinges in Shine said, Gugumare, 6 Che said, 6 Geshe Thubten Rabten Tsikti Chösade. Then the Duhensido Geshe Tsikti Timbeki Donatiki Gores or Duenda Cheni Dona Tsikti.
And Lama Tsongkhapa explains the term, the meaning and the Dharma, and as he says, refers to the meaning and the words. Because, so whilst meaning is clear, the word Dharma can have a variety of meanings. Here it specifically refers to the Dharma itself. So this word translated here correctly as Dharma can be translated in different ways. Here it specifically refers to the Buddha Dharma, and in our context would be that of the Four Noble Truths. That's true cessations, true sufferings, true cessations, true origins, true cessations, and true paths, and their meaning. So both the scriptural words as well as the meaning of those is what is to be cultivated.
당시 지단의 최라용도 지단당한 저기 수자들은 정부 유지 가서 여바 차상 최서로다 다바디게 최래 당한서 개와다 미개와다 롱바다다 가래네 지수 최래서 여바들라 차상의 최서지 거야 지금 거로와 야 최서의 시제도 야 지금 저기 야 상계리야 대바체 상계리야 제주도 대바체 상계리야 이체단 대바체비 토네 단 개와 주비게다 benengage doye tsikdang ane luke cha cheada dene gomyage semgi debacheada an jamroje semdi dischasan chwerwada chwesede 갑소방한테 지당 최세야디 예바 삼절을 최세하고야 지외바제 당한쪽에야 낭쉐네 시베 최세 기시리 갑라 다 건절이야 상길이야 대바 지지도 제 상길의 이지시 상이 제수 장제 아니 계주주야 돼 계주주야 개와들라 최세하고 최세하고 와다 이 최세하고 버려
The word Dharma has a number of meanings. One common meaning is anything that exists. So whether it's impermanent phenomena or permanent phenomena, everything that exists is a Dharma. Another way to express that would be all virtuous topics, all non-virtuous topics, all ethically neutral, unspecified topics, all can be called Dharmas. Here, though, the meaning, and we have it in English, in that Dharmas was written with the uppercase, refers to the Buddha Dharma. So the various topics of the Buddha Dharma, and not just the topics necessarily scriptural, but in terms of what one cultivates within. So minds of the Dharma is such as a mind of refuge, or expressing that refuge through making prostrations and offerings and so forth. So here it refers to the accumulation of virtue in relation to the Buddha Dharma.
최세야데 삼다 최세야고로와 지상한도 낭배 최라도 낭바 템바상이 점된데리아 데바다 니 이시 제주되지 아니 그런 송셰비기 하나만 주게 대제수 장제 아니 지금 룡하게 죄바 자와제 냠는 제야데 개와 주게 되라 최세야스로와 이슈이냐 그런 주게 이슈 템바 그런들이야 템바들라 이시다 데바 제주되지네 아니 그런 게 제수 장제 아니 그것도 가르치야 될 이슈가 최세야 되니게 힌두다 가지다 지도수 차이로 딩한테 최세야 되다 승으로와다 지다되니시 고초로와.
And another meaning of Dharma would be that of, would be translated in English as religion, in that it can refer to the various religions. So hence the translation of Buddha Dharma. So referring to the Buddhist religion and the topics, the teachings within the Buddhist religion. So this word Dharma, but we translate it as religion, can relate to the Christian religion, the Hindu religion, the Muslim religion, and so forth. So all of these would be or similar meanings of the word Dharma, and in other contexts, then it would be faith in the particular god or gods of that religion, the cultivation of the views and the practices of those religions. Here, of course, the meaning is specific to that of the Buddha Dharma and the cultivation of the views and qualities of the Buddha Dharma.
아니 개화될 레벨스네 대 차상 고야요 말해서 다디 고야 말해서 다대값도 최세리 디니게 개회 냠는체 땜바게 책대로 고래 책대 다대값 최세 책세 배는 최세리다 상여 점년이 손시비도 도디기다 근데 그 공부르다 근데 상여 장라서 손시비 된주에리기로 아니 최세 디시고래 최세데 제가 최세 니가를 고고선 된나 최라도 제가 된나 최라도 최디 죄지기 직제 디기 죄자 된다디세도 고고 제가다 최다 된나 최세디 갑들 최세디 죄지기 직이 최도마도 상계래 대바체 제소 장에 아니 디기 럽시비게 냠내는 바 차상을 고고 말해서 그러다 제가 다디 갑디 된나 최세 된의 손실 된나 최세디 죄지기 직 근데 대시대하다 자셔심 냠내 림바대야 동예대야 되네게다 가지 냠내 림바댐비기 주식이 직대 근데 최세하디 디고래서
Yeah, this expression, words and the Dharma, meaning and the Dharma, this then refers to the Buddha Dharma and its meaning. So the words, what do we have words? The Dharma, this then would refer to, for example, sutras, as well as the shastras, such as those by Nagarjuna, as well as they're not just the literal words, but their meaning. So the explanation of the various topics. And the topics would be all the various topics of the Buddha Dharma, such as the cultivation of bodhicitta, the wisdom realizing emptiness, and so forth. So that is the meaning in this context.
아니래. 양다발 삼바 세디 나데네 양다 삼바를 중어 리버 자워서 양다발 삼바 세도 니도나 카레스네 양다발 삼바니 소소로 또비게 뢰 지진 셈바오 다다 제바체들이 소소도 뢰게 짐주시 제바체게 삼로들라 네 양다발 삼바 세디 시고래서
Furthermore, reflecting correctly, so that term means, is to reflect having analyzed with a finely investigating awareness. So what's here translated as finely investigating awareness refers to investigating the various points within a topic. So often translated as individual analysis. So this is the meaning of reflecting correctly, is to engage in analysis, to engage in investigation using one's intelligence. Final point. This shows that both non-distraction and investigation are necessary for accomplishment of excellent qualities of the Dharma.
Dini go parties, the two Yamna chair, Nelia, Dini Yaman Kuri, Dini Siri, Dagaresena, Semayawa, gave him Gavalmi, Sim Kuris, and then Taditi Yantaba Samba said, and Duele, the Sosor, JP Lloyd Kuris, Chesnada, Dini. Yula give chela samatayata and de Kang Inda Mai and then Sherapki Jabachi Pigi, JP Lo, Odusian Kogore, Semni Kogore, or die.
So this sentence, and it's missed in the English, but the sentence concludes with, for every accomplishment of excellent qualities of the Dharma. So to accomplish any excellent quality of the Dharma, whether one is striving to cultivate the Dharma to achieve the goal of a hero or of a solitary realizer, or one is striving to cultivate the qualities of the Mahayana of Bodhisattvas, whatever one's objective may be, to cultivate the excellent qualities of that Dharma, one requires these qualities of non-distraction and investigation. So investigation refers to what we've just looked at before, reflecting correctly. So engaging with one's intelligence or wisdom, meditating with analysis. And one meditates on what we saw in the sentence before, the Dharma and the meaning. So again, whether it is the Dharma of the hero, solitary realizer, or bodhisattva, that is what one meditates on with investigation, with analysis. And one does so with a mind that is utterly undistracted. And this then links also to what we looked at previously, without the faults of agitation, lethargy, and so forth.
mukbada ni dang ane ji jingwa ji ga je antele gang je ba ji yu tele ya sem je ji ba samda ji go go le se je da di samda wa zam ye ne yen den tu ha go tu ge tu ma re de zam yen di ma de le ya an di ga yin da mai di ne kim sen ga re di ka de sing go re se kim sen je ba che go re se on dus je ba chi ne je du je zan ni go re se di yu gang la mi bi ge yu de la ane han jingwa la so ba da go balas mu balas pa kan se ju de sem se chi pa chi ta wa chi ko lo chi ko an de ti ga la ya an she rap ki che ba che ko re se da kan je le ding yi zin nam she rap ni song zhe ko re se wo da yu zhe chi de yu de le zhe ju ne zhe ju sam da ding yi zin che ko sha ko re an ding yi zin zam ni zhu ma re de la an chi che ba chi bi ge che ba che she rap cha ko re ding yi ye ba za ding yi zin nam she rap ge cha 냠네 셰레 디냠스 렘발 때네다 차바숨이 연된 가리네 디네실 두포고리 에스큐제오 나보 삼다데 규디니시 고고리 에세 숨면서라
What to summarize in what's been looked at here, which ties so well with what we looked at previously, because we're just concluding a sub-outline that we started last night, where we looked at how to do this meditation. So this is all one large sub-outline starting from the paragraph on the previous page. All these are analytical meditations, in that whatever one's chosen virtuous object, this is what one should meditate on, without distraction to other virtuous objects, and certainly not to non-virtuous objects or ethically neutral objects, unspecified objects. So whatever chosen virtuous object one has, one should meditate on that without distraction, utterly undistracted. That incorporates without the faults of laxity, lethargy, sleep, and agitation or excitement. And one should meditate in a way, so we have undistracted, and with analysis or with investigation, reflecting correctly. So this refers to these two forms of meditation, non-distraction and analysis. Non-distraction refers then to a mind of concentration, maybe not calm-abiding, but at least then a mind concordant with that, as well as a mind of meditative insight, or a mind concordant with that, a mind of intelligence. So these two features are required in our meditation, concentration and intelligence. With these two, expressed in more detail in what has just been said, concentration without those faults of distraction and other hindrances, as well as intelligence, a mind of analysis. This is the way to meditate on one's chosen virtuous object.
and some stuff in the Dunga Demba some time do, then I was so surrounded the Pumbo some data, the Pumbo Dunga Demba some data, so Pumbo some Nalia, so Pumbo de Alola Shao, what Chisa Denisha Gabla, Pumba some data Gabla, that so Sugi Lagada, and the Jigichalada, Punjada Temba in the same part church, and the Pumbo de Lolia Sintumarwa. Chisa din tell general traffic, Namia. Go by the car or yes. That in a some big up Pumbo de do sometimes you do in there, same day you says the same now do send Pumbo Zingo Mara, not much Madio Chazan you cook your mares. That same Mubasi, same ya Mubasi, the Muba Yubache, Bell Lucem GT, Nuba Meba, not on much Devena, Chazadi, and Pumbo de Yabutzin to go Mara, the Meza the Muba de Cahores. That Jinwa Jevena, that same delia. Take Pumbo the Tindigo in Nushu Kaya Medican, Shoe Medican, then a Charlie Javena, Jeza Pumbo de Yahuli to Mad, then Zada Pumbo Tilia, Jeso, neither Mubo than Jinwa Chasangaji, same Jumbu, Nushu, Shu Gen Shu, but Nushu, Nuba, the Savage Pumbo Zimba Gogures, that is India much Gogures, that's a Miba, same Miba, the Ziba, Dingens, Dinach Gogures. That thing is when I mean that. Dushin Iba Sim Dushin Zingores. That the neg do since Pumbo do says Sem the Nuba Yuba Jungri, Several Zindovina, Digi Pumbo Moak and his Hako two rivers in it. They are Udu Marisa. That Diga la Javacho or Sheraki, Karjawas and Pumbo de Canis Moak and Coron Yucanist in the Jungudu, Pumbo de Yena, Ganga Kangari Yudu, Pumbo de Ducaris Mudo Simpe, two Javachidu. So to be shared Java said Chagore, Jazan, Sutoba Jabare. Di Jebigi and that Dini the best you the Mipo Pumbo de la Sosuke Semnalia Pumbo de Jungri, Pumbo de Abuzi, Sem Ding Zindu by Kapla, Pumbo shared up Tikapa, Jabba Chindu, and a Ganzam Chiglia, Jabaji, Jevoka Legation, or Pumbo did the Jew. Nyommaleda nyommalete ne chuma redo ta de phumbo de ye chinjela ne na sa dunga ta mara yong chi redo wa de za da phumbo de dunga de ba ngone redo sembege da semna ta ju be samno de li ro wa da di devu chaigo ro jezan di deni ge yong ya de devu di da semla phumbo ngo dunga de ba iresha sembe ngeba ni bi lo ane di kebala di nyele ya di gorgo sene phumbo de la Mipi sem and the Zechipachita, and Pumotilla Java Jepige, Jepi Sharap Dini Gugures, Chesa, Nikoba Denso said Diso Yendendi, Shujubala, Dinikoba Denso said Dinigi, Pesonto Shavana, Dus never Tardu Pumboda, Dunga de Baresha, Sembig, never Nebig Lodi, Jevala, Niela, Pumbotilla, Jungri region, Mipi, Dingis in Jita. And my Simjan Mayawaji near you can see that Delia and the Sheraki Jabba Chibi Sherap needed Google such.
So this is an important section we've now concluded looking at. So I want to make sure that it's clear for you how we need to engage in meditation. So how to meditate. So as we are in the overall topic of true sufferings, we'll take this as the meditation object. Of course, the technique applies throughout the Lamrim, but here we'll look at true sufferings. In particular, let's take as an illustration, if one's meditating on how the aggregates are body and mind, how our aggregates are true sufferings. So that's the object of meditation, or to express it differently, that is what we are meditating on, the meditation topic. So therefore, with that being the chosen virtuous meditation topic, that is what should appear to our mind. In other words, our mind should be thinking about how our body and mind are naturally subject to suffering, because that is the meditation topic. So that should appear to our mind, or that's what we should be thinking about. That should be the meditation object. Our mind shouldn't be distracted to the various activities we have to do, whether around the home or at work or what's going on with our family or friends. Our mind shouldn't be distracted to that. but should be staying on the topic of meditation. How, in this case, our body and mind is naturally subject to suffering. So that we'd normally say meditating without distraction. Then the quality of the meditation, the quality of the meditating mind is important. One shouldn't fall asleep. And again, in this context, the word asleep refers to, as mentioned last night, the five, the sense consciousnesses being withdrawn and the mind being inactive, like when we are asleep. Also, one should meditate without lethargy. So this is quite a coarse mind, in that the mind, a coarse mind in that is easy to recognize. So this is with drowsiness or fogginess. So the mind should not be lethargic. It shouldn't be engaging with the meditation topic, but in a way that's lethargic. So you're experiencing drowsiness or fogginess. Likewise, the mind shouldn't be engaging with the topic of meditation in a way that's lax. So if the mind is engaging with the topic, if the mind is lax, then you may well be meditating on the topic, that the physical and mental aggregates are in the nature of suffering, but the mind lacks strength, or the strength is limited depending on the degree of subtlety of this laxity. You're engaging with the object, but the strength is limited. Lethargy, you're also engaging with the object, but the mind is drowsy, or falling asleep maybe, and fogginess. So these show that one is, and then of course without agitation or distraction. Agitation or excitement, which is what leads to distraction. So these are aspects of meditating with good quality, and we can call this concentration. So we're using the word here, concentration, not because it doesn't necessarily have to be that one calm abiding, but this is a mind concomitant with calm abiding, a similitude of calm abiding. But that just having a mind that is on the object of meditation is definitely insufficient, because you're not using your intelligence. You're just, rather, concentration ensures that the quality of the meditation is good, and the quality of the mind meditating is good, and there's not distraction. That is all. That's imperative, but we also need to use our intelligence, to use our wisdom. Otherwise, one's insight of the topic of meditation will not deepen. So one needs to meditate with concentration on the topic of meditation and be thinking, using one's intelligence, using analysis and investigation to come to develop one's insight into the topic, come to see with vivid clarity how our physical and mental aggregates are naturally subject to suffering, and come to a deeper and deeper understanding of this. Meditating then in this way, with concentration and using our wisdom or our intelligence, we'll come to understand ever more clearly and ever more deeply how our aggregates are naturally subject to suffering, leading us to seek out the causes of suffering, contaminated karma and afflictions. So this way, we deepen our meditation topic, and it serves as the foundation for further ongoing meditation topics. So therefore, in brief, one needs to meditate with a combination of concentration and intelligence or wisdom.
Di mena ne ako yung mare tu su ko kore se ne ko bi kim chen lung di na le do na le din sung yo den jen na den sung yo le se di ki shu sung yo le ta de ga xue de.
Whilst I'm talking about meditating on suffering, meditating on true sufferings, the actual meditation on suffering is coming further in the page. So we haven't actually got there yet. This is, here Lama Tsongkhapa is explaining how to do the meditation. So, and he said above that you rely on sutras and their various commentaries and the Shastras. So that's what you rely on. And then they explained how to do the meditation. But the actual meditation is still to come.
Number me sim sia tang ane che yang da ba samba so she so to be share up said the song du di don da de la ane ma song go re je za da di don da de ya yu zhi ji de mi ba ma ya ba sim si de mo xin ne wen ne yong go re xin ne wen ne ma yin ba xin ne zhou bu xie yong go re de wa ni ga yong go re da de ni ge so to be share up said de yang ane share up ka so re la dong yong go re ne la dong men ba 대나 조보제 용거래 제산당한最대시写定是조보를写但其实我呢那풍부를 민의 신의 지지비 네비 신의 톱되바 톱간 지인바이나 당한 풍부게 동아디 풍부를 제바 제대갑라 풍부들 지지도 미비 신의디 제바 지지비 신의 쪽 신의 여바제 다 풍부게 신 풍부들 지지비 신의도 여바이나야 풍부게 오인에서 가는 신바다 하고 두고를 배서는 이 두고 말에 될려야 제바 제고를 해서 제자다 풍부 딜라 지지비 신의게 제주도 내신배 뒤가내다 셰럽기 풍부들이야 뭐당 유당 뭐다 되는 제바제네 다 제인도다 디셰럽 당보는 원에디 제주네바디 신용원에디시 대제바제인데다 가소래 셰럽게 제바제 되네 제바제네 안 타말이야 안지기 리셈을 강함이 대외 신경에 대화를 소치려도 안데 셰럽들라 나동사죠 제자디 실라송태세 공백이 차고 되니디
So the actual meditation, the detailed way to do the meditation on true sufferings, that will follow. Here again, Lama Tsongkhapa has been explaining how to do the meditation. And this presentation on how to do the meditation continues. But it comes down to this, that we need a combination of concentration and wisdom. What will be explained immediately below is to clarify whether this term concentration and wisdom refers solely to a union of calm abiding and meditative insight, or if it can be a lower level than that. And what will be shown is that it certainly would be excellent to have actual calm abiding and actual meditative insight. Otherwise, a mind concordant with that or similitude of that is sufficient. So if we're taking the meditation topic as being the physical mental aggregates, investigating them to see as being naturally subject to suffering, the meditation needs to be done with these two minds of concentration and wisdom, where wisdom is the actual analysis, the investigating, where we had about finally investigating awareness. So you're thinking for yourself, you're analyzing. And so that's the wisdom aspect. And concentration is a mind that's not distracted and with as little lethargy and laxity as possible. So ideally, this would be to the strength of being an actual combination of actual union of calm abiding meditative insight. But if not, then we meditate with what we have, trying to use the best concentration we have, the best intelligence or wisdom that we have. And in this way, we have a similitude of the actual union.
Zada di dena sorda dena sido karsonsne da di kangalaya ane tabasum yende tamje jubala ane deni gobar dendo se donal ba de dini gobar zechi ba da susto be sherap ni gobar de sunyores gogores tenyores sunwada da din ma dena deni sunba ina gymchen dene ina da dingi zechi ba da susto be sherap 고구에 소바이나다 델리아다 제름체 대진 양안 슈바나지레다 근데 딩에진 제텔에 제지버세데 신영원의 인구를 고구마레 세야다 안시럽세야들라 안날 하동원의 인구를 고구마레 세지 온두시네 다딘마 두스니 제름체 송거래 디고 대나 태거숨게 연전 주바 탐제라 셈기위 미반 델레 샨도 미야바 네비게 제지바 신의 왜 삼 대단 제수 튼바 식당 아니 개위기 미발라 소소를 쥐바 대 소수초바 지다와단 진예바 지다와단 진예번 제베劳动 외섬 대단 지수 튠바 식대 니뉴거버 송소 어스니세 디스무레스 워다 세부로지.
With the new sub-outline, which links very closely, continues from where we've been. So it starts with the sentence, therefore it was taught that for every accomplishment of excellent qualities in the three vehicles mentioned a few segments ago, the vehicle of the hero solitary realizer and bodhisattva. So whatever one's goal is to achieve the goals of a hero solitary realizer or bodhisattva, whatever one's goal is, two things are necessary: actual shamatha, or calm abiding, a single appointed mind that abides on a virtuous observed object without being distracted, or a similitude of that. So that's something that I've just been speaking about now, whether it's actual calm abiding or a mind concordant with calm abiding, so a mind of concentration. And actual special insight, which individually analyzes a virtuous observed object and differentiates the ultimate mode of being from things in their variety or similitude of that. So again, something I've just been speaking about, whether one's intelligence, one's wisdom that one is utilizing to do investigation, whether individually analyzing the virtuous object, whether it needs to be actual meditative or special insight, or a mind that is concordant to that, a similitude of that.
Dini yunde yu chue zhuba tamche la dini guba ten se sik diyor wada. Tangan zuge samdaya la dini guba ten se shine dang lakton ni gugin sare sanpeke samlo kogu wang zule ya. Chisa di dini chay di shine dang lakton niga lo kyangpa lo kwaya ma res. Dela kar kogu lo sen dini say di shine ngwe nang ane shine dang jesu tunpa simzi chikpa la kogu res. Ane lakton ngwe dang jesu tunpa simzi chikpa Dini goba dian xia di xine ngwe da xine da ane jesu tunpege zichibe samlo chi da ane lao ngwe da jesu tunpege susu jibe xerab dini goba dian xia di dele gogo le se zhe dine jia go le sungwa da.
So looking at one sentence above, this shows that both non-distraction and investigation are necessary for every accomplishment of excellent qualities of the Dharma. So what Lama Tsongkhapa then explains in the sub-outline immediately below is he answers the doubt or resolves the doubt of, in order to attain any accomplishment of excellent qualities of the Dharma, does one need the actual union of calm abiding and special insight, or is a mind that is a similitude of that sufficient? That then is answered below, what I've just read out, and there he explains that a similitude is sufficient.
Jesa dena taba sumge yende tamje jubala se de da taba sumse nyendu ge taba da ranje da chenju sempe ge tebe ge yende ganesh jube ne ya da nyamlen jibi ga la semdi ge wale mi ba zechi do mi ba nen ji ne kesin shuba na shin di mu ba ni da mu ba da jinwa da ne ge wang da ma da wa je yu di zechi le mi be sem jungbo ane ji zechi mi ba sem shan de mi ya wa zechi be gu res dine sem shan de mi be zechi ba de la xin ngwe sam xin ngwe ne che ngu re ne xin ngwe ne ma yin na xin ne zhou bu chi jesu ba chi de xin ne zhou bu chi de de ne yong re so da de xi jesu tu ba xi da sa dis wo da sem zechi ba mi be de la shan de mi ya wa ne be zechi ba xin ngwe sam de da jesu tu ba xi di yo re se.
So that sentence I just read out, this end bit, for every accomplishment of excellent qualities of the Dharma, Then it continues, therefore it was taught that for every accomplishment of excellent qualities in the three vehicles. So in the three vehicles is another way of saying every accomplishment of excellent qualities of the Dharma, with the three vehicles being those practitioners of the hero or solitary realizer or bodhisattva type, striving for that, the goal of those vehicles. For them, they have to, as we saw previously, meditate without the fault of distraction coming through excitement and agitation, and with a quality of mind that is free of sleep, lethargy, and laxity. So that is the case for all qualities of mind, for all goals of the Dharma. And then to answer the newer question, is actual calm abiding and special insight required? And Lama Tsongkhapa goes on to say, either actual calm abiding and special insight, or a mind similar to that.
Dina shinda giwi mipa la susur cheba sidoda susur cheba delea ane jitawa de jinyeba yudi mipa de zechidu dadi jian jitawa la dayore ane jinyeba la dawa yungurwa donyi la sam dayore donyi membigida mitapa la soba da pungpa la soba da jinyebe shele mina sam dayungurwa nenegi susur chebe shiratea dingi zine zechidu nibe shine di ngane jeba chebege ane 신에게 제주도 니베 신에 디가네 ane 제바 제베 셰럽티 용물에서 디 라도리 라도 용물이 라도 제바 시다리에서 지다다 내내게 신에 매나 내내게 가소레 제바 제 삼라 용물이 ane 데 가소 라도나 지스도 저부 라도 지기 유 제주도 딩이 제주도 니베 유데라 ane 제바 제네 류심 신장의 대외 심비 셰럽지나 라동원에 차대요 보다 대내기 제주립의 딩인지는 유들의 제주내에 셰베시르게 제바체네 제바제베 내가서 유심 신장의 대외 말씀비 내가 비셰럽 제바제로와 디락동 제든 말이야 학동 저부래 뭐네 말와 제든 봐서 제든 발에는 저부라고 그런 거 많이 봐서 그래서 다 드네 제바체네 유심 신장의 대화 마지비게 내가 기 제바제 셰럽되다 학동 제든 받지 다 드네 ane dene ki cheba chene lusum shinjengin dewa chi kebe kene dewe sinbeda sherabde ane lakdong ngone de che chesa dene sa lakdong de la jidawa de jinye ba la lakdong ngwe sam de dan jisu tume shikde niyo go ba song so sa di song niyo go ba song sa chesa so 지다데 유들라 미 유들라 지다와 요래 진이발라 요래 해서도다 미비 유 제바체서 유들라 대신아도 풍보라 미네 제바체리 진이발와 지다와 동반이라 미네 제바체 동유 동반이라 미체 신내디 동반이라 미 제바체 요래 지다 미 제바체서 유들라 아니 지다와단 진이바 니가 연구를 해서 그러다 니가 연구를 해서 제사다 델라 제바체비 갑라 제바체별 네 신내디가네 제바체네 네 소소 가서 리심 신도 제빈 대베 심비나 네 셰럽디 라동리스 라동외리스 디니게 제바제베 내가 불야 리심 신경이 대외 마진비게 네 제바제비게 라동 셰럽디 라동 지수 tum바 라동외네 말해서 지든 말해서
이 제수 tum바데 마츠낭신 말에 이 신의 드라포 토케네 신의 드라포 성인의
신의 말 라동
이 드라포데
다디 야가 연구로와데 네 간줄레데 하고 제든바 제도다 제바체네당 제바체 대신아주 학동원의 인구가 학동은 저부 그래서 지디로와데 제든바 저부시고로와 저부들라다 대 야도 양지 체로서 야도 먹고로와 다들 생시 소야데 되네지 생시로 뒤송으로 와마도 이 되네 제바제 학동 지든바데 가와요 디네 디바데 차상 가와레스나 제바제네 먹고 차로로 하여로와나
Reading from here, two things are necessary: actual shamatha or calm abiding, a single-pointed mind that abides on a virtuous observed object without being distracted, or a similitude of that, or concordant with that, an actual special insight or meditative insight which individually analyzes the virtuous observed object and differentiates the ultimate mode of being from things in their variety or similitude of that. So the meaning here is that when one is meditating on one's chosen virtuous object, then one should meditate with either actual shamatha and actual special insight, or a similitude of them. So if one has actual calm abiding, one will have not only be able to meditate without distraction on a topic, but one will also have achieved the sign of it being actual calm abiding, which is the arisal of physical and mental pliancy, or pliancy of the body and pliancy of the mind. So that will have arisen. But if one hasn't achieved actual calm abiding, one may have a mind similar to actual calm abiding. So one will have a good degree of concentration, but one has not yet achieved calm abiding marked by the physical and mental pliancy, or the pliancy of the body and the pliancy of the mind. And if one has, that's in terms of what the similitude means in the relation to calm abiding, and then in terms of special insight. So actual special insight is where one has already achieved calm abiding and is able to, without losing single point of concentration, also analyze, also engage in investigation. Because a person who has achieved actual calm abiding with the union of calm abiding meditative insight, at first, as soon as they analyze, their mind is moving, and the single point of concentration is now lost because the mind is moving. When actual meditative insight is achieved, then the practitioner can analyze without losing their concentration, their single point of concentration. So that would be actual special insight, or a similitude of that. So where one is able to analyze without too much distraction, but it's not at the actual union of calm abiding and meditative insight yet. And then the last terms, ultimate mode of being and their variety. So let's say one is meditating on the aggregates, the body and mind, as being in the naturally subject to suffering. So when one is meditating on the body and mind, perhaps seeing its impermanence and so forth, then this is in terms of their varieties. But if one is then looking at whether they exist ultimately or not, in other words, meditating on emptiness, that is ultimate, that refers to the ultimate mode of being, or the ultimate mode of existing, the ultimate way of existing. So the ultimate way of existing refers to meditating on emptiness, on reality, and the things in their variety is on the conventional truths, just meditating on anything other than emptiness.
Dine ya long detar yang gongzhe le se gongzhe na la kar song gongzhe le jamba yang yendue namgi am janju semba namgi am dijin sheba namgi ne gewi chue jidin ba am jidin len de ba tamje ya xine da lao dong yun de bu ri ba jia wo xie song so.
Now we come to a quotation from Unraveling the Intent Sutra. Maitreya, you should know that all virtuous phenomena are the result of shamatha and special insight, whether mundane or supramundane, and whether of shavakas, bodhisattvas, or tathagatas.
Zadat di do na le ya gar song ne ji tibene nya de da ran janju semba da taba dijin sheba san yi ge chue de ge yun den gan de chi me ne ani ana ji tin ba am ji tin le de ba se de Debi ke deba tamje yi an tamje yang ne gewa de le ya jidin be gewa yore jidin le debi gewa yore so re disu gewa chasa ne garso se ne xine da lao dong ge jibu ri par jia wo se de xine da lao dong ge jibu re se an de sung go ro da chi de na le.
So I'm going to read it again, but I'll be reading it in the order of the Tibetan, so we bounce around a little bit. Maitreya, whether of Shavakas or hearers, as well as solitary realizers, bodhisattvas or tathagatas, and whether mundane or supramundane, you should know that all virtuous phenomena are the result of shamatha, or calm abiding, and special insight. In other words, whatever topic of the Dharma one cultivates within is a result of shamatha and special insight. Whether that topic of the Dharma is for the goals of Shavakas and so forth, whether it is mundane or supramundane, it requires shamatha and special insight.
Lamsa Kwe Chila Kargo Anzul do some Davina, Shine da Hadon Jiver Labdu, Shine Tini Bata, Shine Winnie Bata, Hadon Winnie Badi, Wing said some Gurua, that the Jeshero, Jatini Mevan, and do some Gurua, Jetan Jeremche, that Shine da Ha, Shine da Hadon said, Shine Winnie Yunguri, Shine Chitumba Yunguri. Hadon said that Hadon Winnie, Hadon Chitumba Niga Yunguri, such and some water, Niga, the Chekori, Majavena, and Tigmares, the Niga Yungores, or Dandala, that she need a Hadon setting and do some night, she knew when it Hadon Winnie Jibures and big some of course. She then the Mares, she said she knew when she needs to buy Niga Yungures. Hadon said that Hadon Winnie, Hadon Chitumba Niga Yungures.
Lama Tsongkhapa has included the sutra quotation because from reading a quotation such as this, the doubt may well arise. So actual shamatha and special insight is necessarily required to achieve the virtuous phenomena of the Dharma. So that is the doubt that will arise because this is what it says here in this particular sutra quotation. But we've seen, Lama Tsongkhapa explained above, it's not necessarily that actual shamatha and actual special insight is required. A similitude of shamatha, a similitude of special insight is also sufficient.
Dila shila ngwedan jesu tuba ni majena tabasum yenden tamjine ha shila ngwegi jebur obi ngeba medos. Jedan jermi sungore jezada Delia, Shine, the Hadon said, Shine, Chitum, but which each horse. The Hadon de la said, and Hadon Winich, the Hadon Chitum, but each horse. Dimacheva and Tawasun in Chasa, Shilam Winnie, Shine, the Hadon said, Shine Winnie, and Hadon Winnie, Shasha Baina, and Tawasun in Denham, and Shine, the Hadon, the Jewin, Kawa, never your mothers. Chasadi never mena, and Tawasun in the Shine, Hadon Jewi, said, Baba Chago Marwa. 자기 엄마로 제가 되는 인자 윤천도 some 제바제 요도 아니 예 태버스미 인단 탐지 신내용에다 활동의 제부 인백이 매바요 말에서 매바인자 아니 태버스미 인단 탐지 신내다 활동의 제부레스네 지고 말에서 다른 안다디 매는 도나 송교에 가려람나 다 신내용에다 신내 제된바 니가라자 활동에다 활동 제된바 니가라자제는 제부레스 고고레스 거다.
Then Lama Tsongkhapa thereafter makes this clear with shamatha and special insight must include both actual and a similitude, for it is not certain that all excellent qualities of the three vehicles are effects of actual shamatha and special insight. So the key point being made here is that there is this term, it is not certain that all excellent qualities, and in particular the emphasis is on this word all, that therefore, some excellent qualities can be achieved with only a mind that's concordant with shamatha, a mind concordant with special insight.
Andadi yanjelang jugida dungagi samot jeba chealia dunga komsidi danga jugi kombiati da komdi manjugi jeomdire jeomsidu dungagi samdadi karkare imbi kimso dunga kongo karre yugarele tinin jugudu koran netan kanir shesha adi anisiksidu ati ko kechu dige seshigarwada ko yabu duyemen jalan masona yabu dumino jala seshebene jaladi yugarresha anzik when it you too much said, then the Serro shall Tom and the Jung and Serri do Mindo, and Jiggy, Ganesha said the Rotan, shall I do Caracadi, you can see Congo, Canadian, Pene, Gun do a Mindo said, the La Chayoda, Sarah Jigoda, the Negi do Mindo, and the Judy and Caracas Separation said, then is in Zigro, Benangazela, Chala Carina, Dinishin, and the Soda Kawan Tungo said, and the Munis already, and Chala Tumutin such in already, Timbora Yoma said, the Munis me, Soda Puitabo, and Chala Yabodens also didn't Timber say, Ishi Yungoro, or Dina, she done to get Dunga Dembas, Chebachi, the Dechta, Dunga said, Ganesh, called Ganesh Kyoto, the Niang Ganesha, and the called Yuganesh Rudusin, the Negi Chebache, Dilla. That Dunga Combasi or Dunga Combasi, Dunga Netan Chebajo. We need to connect to Chebaja. She said Dunga Combasi or. She said D Combatella and the Caracores, the some of the Namiangi on the Mason, and the Jingwon on the Mason, Lo, Sewu, and the bed doing a telemi below the Lo Sewu Chitang, and the Junguche, and the Udila Sawa Mipach Cores, and this am Yidima, they did Zejiba Danish Cores. These are meeting that Delia, Sheriff Chebachin, Sheriff Chebachores, the Kandami Chebachore, the Chebachene, Utilen, Zeju, me begin it since Chita, and Delia, Chebachibi, Sheriff Nigi, Cheodu, and Tamalia, Dungai, or Daddy, Ditedoa, or Dindishedoa, you didn't see Doa, Cesada Ningo Mindu, that did it, Yabo Mindu Sembeke, that the Dungalia, Yijumi, Loti, or Echerwada, Cesadi, that. And this is not a decoy shepherd, Shugore. Cesada, Denigi Badang, and a Chisostopo Cueva dida, Cargarosum, Zijima Meva, and Gariore, and Jimeva and Gariorsen, and Junjuna Casa, a did. The Casachevena, then Zijimena, Donda, Tivu Mares, Demere, Sada, and a Denigi that in Tevachimbe, Tevatimbe, Donald Sonda, the no Conte, just Denison. Soya Donald Soya Dige, Yumsendelida, Mipata, Zichu, the same number Meyawa, Util, Mipa Chebaja, Mipa Zichipa Chitang, Delia, Soso to be Sheraki Chebachi, Shera need the Kohuri, Stanyam and Chepala, the Kohuri, Sadi, the Yumsenti Pashu, that is how I did. D'abord, si c'est pas tingin de roi, le c'est pas si tingin de ni pas cher de tingin bes dans ni c'est tingin c'est vrai, tingin bes dans moi. C'est ça ça quand de ni dans mo pas dans, 情愿我都说呢，语的tingin是语的把这部进度过，没把了这些年把的用嘛嘞，这部用过嘛嘞，就送了。但这的端那嘛，的新年过的，当然呢，新年咱们这个嘛的了，说都是写了过的噻。但你们切把来第二个写了第二步的过来，那第二步的点过来是我话。
So let's bring together what we've been looking at last night and this morning in this section. Here we can refer back to the quotation from Entering the Bodhisattva Way of Life on the previous page. Reciting austerities and the like, the seer taught is meaningless if done with the mind distracted elsewhere, even if practiced for a long time. So where we've come to now is this has been a presentation largely on how to do the meditation in general, but here in particular in relation to true sufferings, where one needs to meditate primarily with analysis, analytical meditation, using finally investigating awareness, as well as placement meditation, coming to the point eventually where one has the actual union of shamatha and special insight. But we need to progress to get to that point, to get to where we have a similitude of the two. How do we get there? So this is largely what we've been looking at from the points in the commentary, although these are analytical meditations, where we saw that one, in order to have a mind of concentration, as well as a mind of analysis, one needs to guard against the various obstacles arising. The first was that of a mind distracted. And a mind is distracted often through agitation or excitement, it can be called either, and it can be distracted to another virtuous object. And that we shouldn't allow ourselves to do that, but to stay on the chosen virtuous object. And certainly not to go to a non-virtuous object or an unspecified and ethically neutral object, but stay on the chosen topic. Moreover, we saw that, and again, this is so as to develop the quality of our meditating mind to eventually get the union, develop a union of calm abiding, a union of shamatha and special insight. We need to guard against distraction, and we need through agitation, and we need to ensure that the mind is not asleep, it is not lethargic. So in other words, we're not falling asleep or with experiencing drowsiness or fogginess. So guard against sleep, guard against lethargy, and guard against laxity, where the mind lacks power. So you may well be either in a state of lethargy, which is coarser than laxity, or in laxity, meditating undistractedly on your topic. But the mind, if it's lethargic, is drowsy, foggy, or if it is lax, it lacks power, lacks strength with engaging with the meditation topic. And there, you remember last night we mentioned there are many levels of coarseness to subtlety within the mind of laxity. So all of these need to be guarded against so as to develop the quality of our meditating mind. Furthermore, we saw last night in brief that the object needs to, the object or the meditation topic, whatever it is we are meditating on, needs to appear to the mind in a way that's clear or lucid. So like if you're looking through still clear water and you can see the riverbed clearly. So in this way, the object should appear to the mind in a way that is lucid and clear. And all of this needs to be done, so it needs to be done with both concentration, but also with investigation. It is not at all sufficient to just be developing concentration. One also needs to analyze. And this is what has been emphasized a lot in this morning's talk, where the need to do individual investigation has been emphasized. So I think generally we have a lot of experience of using our intelligence in a way of analysis and investigation. For very simple things of, for example, if you go to a shop and you're choosing a product, how do you make your choice? You look at various products, combine it with the knowledge you have, and you investigate. Dependence on the knowledge I know, what I'm seeing here, this is the one that suits my needs better. Whether it's choosing vegetables or choosing electronic device, this is how we do it. We use our intelligence based on knowledge we've gathered and what we are observing. So we know how to do this, and this is what we need to do in our meditation. So in our meditation, we look at the entity. So the entity is you could also say definition. So it's how you come to understand what it is, what the topic of meditation is. So what is meant by suffering? And what are the various guises in which suffering appears? And we also look at its causes in terms of what leads to the arisal of suffering. And from those causes, what are the results? In other words, how does one experience suffering? What comes from suffering? So you're looking at a whole sequence of events. And this is done with a mind of analysis. So this then ties together all that we've looked at last night and today, which is about how to meditate, in particular because of our topic here on true sufferings, but this really is how to meditate on the topics of the Dharma.
yu di kare le mi ne gomba ina de le mi ba zechu de ne ne sem sha de metro zechu ni be ding yin chi ko re an ding den di ga ne da de ne ge she da ki che ba che ko re sa ding ni de ko re sa de la di re da ding ni ko re sa so re che san ding ni ko ye yum je de le da lung di ge don da ma she de she ja da de ne mang bo cha so ma da don da dor tu na da ning bu di re 제사당 아주 동화 공부를 제공 치고 제공 제발라 그래 위에 강을 미는 미바션도 미야와 제시도 내바제 제시 내내 되는 시럽게 제바제 고래서 돈다디니 고래서 고다 희절 마소당 저기 동화 공부해들이야.
The very essential meaning, the briefest summary of what we've looked at thus far this weekend, is that the way to meditate is with a union of single-pointed concentration, either actual shamatha or similitude, as well as special insight or similitude. In other words, meditate without distraction, but investigate, analyze, think. And we need to utilize both. So we start where we are and we cultivate in the way briefly described these various skills so as to be less distracted, more concentrated, but to continue to analyze with a good quality mind. So the reasons were presented for this, why it's important, presented from the quotations that Lama Tsongkhapa provided, why it's important to be undistracted, and that all good qualities of the Dharma, whatever one's goal is, whether it's individual liberation or Buddhahood, all come from this union of calm abiding and meditative insight or a similitude.
아니, 제가 동화 공부에 다 책임을 맡아서 공부를 책임지고 그래서 된다들이 동화 공부를 책임에서는 유죄로 쓰면 고야기 잘라도 맡아서 디고 그래서 근데들와다 배나는 저기 제모를 제베나 강제볼 제베나 강제볼 제대 칼고서 한국하고 거르바다 한국에면 제가 한국에 디나신다 제모 가리네리 코로나 제모디 제발라 니엘이야 제모 제베네 가르고 해 가르고 그래서 디니엘 데리체고레스 데리체 산에 진짜 제모 자로 그래서 제가 결혼 제모 가르쳐 가지고 결혼 제모디 소가 제가 주는 결혼 디디 고래 결혼 디소 디고 고래 디고 그래서 하지다 다고 제모 하나 결혼 디고 그래서 하다 네 샤브로타는 어저 둘로를 마선 디고래 디지장 것만 되네 고그래서 데리디디지 고그래서 시거로 와다 이나징아 저기 동화된 바 제금 제발라 데리를 마선은 삼노디도 고그래서 다 데리지야 시거래 다 데리지야 송산에 되는 아주 제몰 마선에 데리 차사 제산에 된 제당을 봐도인지 제고로 와다 이나신다 동화원의 고미에게 삼다에데 다 되는 마시고래.
Just like if you are going to go and play some sport or you're going to go to the gym, before you leave home, you'll make sure you've got all the required equipment with the right shoes, the right clothing, and maybe if it's sporting equipment, all of this that is required, you'll prepare and then you'll go. And when you arrive, you'll be able to engage in the gym or play your sport. So likewise, in order to engage in actual meditation on the topic of true sufferings, one needs knowledge to prepare. One needs to understand how to do the meditation, how to meditate. So this is what we've looked at now. We've done the preparation for the actual event, how to meditate on true sufferings. And that's what then the text presents next.
동화 삼바디 차고래 다 동화 고미에 공회지 고미에서 고미에 들이시고래 제사다 동화 가도 동화 삼면 동화 고미에 제 공부하는 나라 근데 제대 당보 가서 기회 동화 삼다들이 제사 계기 나네 기회 동화 삼바 제사 늘 다디 동화 제금 제기 원인이 당고시디 된 마삼다다 고수고래 삼당 고수고다 고 동화 제버제 제금 정고시디 다들 제금 제 동화디 당보 동화기는 가르를 제금 제고라서는 기회 동화 써야 돼. 제금 제야 해서다. 지단 기회 동화 제금 제발라 기회 동화 삼당나들 가서 요래서는 안 되는데 요래서 디송아. 늘 동화기에 당보 기회 동화 삼발라 알레스. 제자다 동화기에 당보 기회 동화 삼보리. 되네 삼당나들이야. 다 미라와는 나로 삼다 요래서.
So the preparation, this has now been looked at. So hopefully this is clear to everyone how to engage in meditation. Now we come to the actual meditation. And as we saw, the meditation on true sufferings is presented in the 8 sufferings and thereafter in the 6 sufferings. Starting with the 8 sufferings, the first is the suffering of birth. So now we come to the presentation of the information that one needs to come to understand, to take to mind, to recall, so that one can use this information as the basis to engage in analytical meditation, as the basis for one's fine investigation. So starting at the first, so page 158, here, contemplating the suffering of birth, the first of 8 types of suffering has 5 points. So birth is the first of 8, and these all have their 5 points, so as does that of birth.
Another give dunga sabata dunga said and the mu dunga said lamsa dunga de lokoyagi some lot of shukche the answer dunga said for dunga de kitina there's some shukche court war was the injimi del koyamar that they gyendi pumbu gyendi sigura gyendi the munjidane azugi waiting puro gyendi puge amadele kanga yobarochi some kormado puho yakanga puge the pu de la kanga yoba some kogo marwa. 제가 부기디가 아마라강아 요레시 지지 아마라강아 마치게 된다라야 근데 탑람대 맹가나게 다다마라지 지교로 아마도 부기를 부부들이야 계비기 값수 강아 갈가리 유바딩아 저게 제제라지 삼로시 땅거 말와
So usually when we think about suffering, we think of the threefold division, which is the first, that of physical and mental pain. So we're in a different presentation of suffering, not the threefold, but the eightfold. But here it also starts with a very apparent form of suffering, the suffering of relating to birth. And here it's specifically referring to the being born. So in the human context, a child being born. Normally when we think of the suffering of birth, our mind thinks of the mother, because the mother tends to have a bit of a hard time. She needs to go somewhere or have people around her who can help her in this time of real danger, and also help cope with the physical difficulties and the pain of birth. But here the situation is in terms of coming to recognize the suffering of birth, is about the being born.
다 되네게 기회 중간에 삼다 nga요래서 다 되네게 당한적이 셈을 마소나 지지도 삼다사디 지게 아주게 보고 싶어 기회게 기행하게 계세 당보 기행을 보들 삼다모로다 될야 삼다 다 될야 안동아 가래 용보려 세대 다 대체시 믹스디 보고 기회 보고 계세 보고 될야미 게미야 들어다 다 시럽게 제바제데 다 기회가 보들야 강아가르가르 용보래 세대 시럽게 제바제 차고로 받아.
So in this meditation, one holds with concentration or placement the child, or you imagine a child being born, and that's what one it holds with concentration. Then with analysis, so the 2 types of meditation, placement and analysis. Then with analysis, so using one's intelligence, one reflects on the suffering that is associated with this child that is being born or has been born.
이게다 당보들라 제와 동안에 템바시오라 제와 동안에 템바시오라 당보데 세상 제와데 동안에 템바레스 세상다 동안에 템바나 동아와니 소다 심제냐와 바다 타지도 동아위 이다 남다 나게 남다 공제데 시보 대단히 깨나 동아기 초와 잡고 멍보다 집이 제대 겨워스.
So it's just been mentioned that this suffering of birth is the first of 8 types of suffering, and it, like the others, have 5 points. The first of the 5 points. Birth is suffering because it is painful. Hell beings, particularly suffering pretas, beings born from wombs, beings born from eggs, are born with a lot of visceral sensations of pain.
제자다 기위값을 동안 망부 연구를 해서 내 수술 연구를 해서네 semje nyawa la kebi kabla dunghari yungores ne taji dunga be taji dunga nyawa ba de ida de ke de ne yungores dene nga ne bi nga ge da nga mi na da dun nga ge chyo ro da dene nga ge de su le dunga yungores da 공화 le ba de ke le yungores dunga ya de ke be ka su dunga ya de su le yungores 주기에 될 용매다 주기에 될라 되네 또 기회 동안에 패시 매서와 제가 당한도 됐어야 되다 되니게 타지도 동안 해야 될이야 아니 그러니까 수술 요새네 냐와를 깨다 이다를 깨야 당하게 남시도 나게리야 미여를 dun도여를 여러하다 아니 이다다 지 연구를 나게 되니게 나게다 되네 공화를 깨봐 공화 깨릭도 깨리야 안 깨고서 동화 연구를해서 깨위 깨서 동화 영화기 다 깨와다 가르가르여서 디솔 연구를해서 다 요리다 주게 되라 깨위 동화로 지금 매바로 차고래 깨위 값도 강한 내가 되다 죄게세 안데 데디즈도 메제 죄게다 데졸라디 죄게되기 다시 매서다 같이 깨위 값도 동화디 강아지 책매서와
In terms of places that beings are born, we see birth is suffering because it is painful. Hell beings, as well as pretas, so there's this additional term, perpetually suffering pretas, and then beings born from wombs. So here that we think of both humans as well as animals that are born from wombs, and then specifically those born from eggs. So these refer to different realms of birth as well as different ways of being born or modes of birth are born with a lot of visceral sensations of pain.
나는 주기에 세야 돼. 다양한 주기에 dunro 주기를 고 있어라. dunro. 근데 냐오바 되게 비시 주기 이유로 나 게는 말이야. 내는 공항에 개반는 말이야. 내는 드레시를 개반 말이야. 비시 주기에 차고래. 냐와 게디게. 세상다 다데데 내세데 다 주기 dunro 주기로 줘와다.
So of the different ways to be born, two are explicitly mentioned, from wombs and from eggs. So of those who are born spontaneously, for some, this is not a process of pain, but for others, such as beings born in hell, who are born spontaneously, there certainly every moment in the hell existence is one of pain.
네, 저기 낮에는 수기를 하다 수미를 하셔다 되니기 단순하게 바르도와셔야 되게 주기에 차용으로 디솔야 직되니기 기회 동안에 용매해서 된다라.
There are other forms of beings who take birth spontaneously, who do not suffer at birth, but they are still bound in samsara. So here we can think of the various gods, as well as beings in the intermediate state. Their birth there is instantaneous or spontaneous, but they do not suffer at birth.
지난 베지디나도 주기를 동안 기회 동안 요 말에 숨면도 디나 숨면도 내가랑 삼주 이제 셰샤버다 야데 딱딱 차기 나면 하고요 말 가정이 가르스는데 이다다 안에 나기에다 공개를 기회 동안 요래 숨면도 dunro한 저기 dunro 근데 주기를야 근데 니기 기회 동안 되면말에 섬걸 제사디.
So what I'm saying here about spontaneous birth is my opinion, because as we can see, it's not stated in the text. What the text makes specific reference, overt reference to birth from womb and eggs. But this is my understanding in terms of spontaneous rebirth. The hell beings would suffer, but other forms would not.
다 누가 가려서 누가게 초와 잡아 망보다 제기게 했어. 누가 가려서 변한 저기 미 부로 게도 갑에 누가 가려서 누가 초와 잡아 망부여 해서 망보다 제기게 했어.
The suffering that is experienced at birth is an illustration of suffering of suffering or physical suffering, and that is expressed here, are born with a lot of visceral sensations of pain.
나디네기 안주게 지금 삼다면에 게 부고 아주 밀마스나 부고 게비 갑라 안 동아 가르 용거래스레 삼다면에 고 부기디 마 안 된비 갑라 파직 지르체 안에 되네기 강아 여러봐다 부된고로와 좋은마 된고로 도되거라 사제 된사디 구양보 메디 안데 마직 빼 슈로게 지르드머니 야lungi 마 비자 슈크다 비자 다도 얘네데 나자 용거로 와다 나고로 와데 내 강아 용 아주 데네 삼다네 아주 강아 세버지 하고 투야 차들어 와 나데네 기용도 갑라 건그 나로 아미 도가나를 봐 배지샤 전부 강라 되는자 먼저 치료 되어도 라고 주는 먼저 라고 주고 봐 라고 주고 연 누로다 데네기 칸 제네 주고로 지도 아니 샤려야 투어도 니 초와들이야 그 강아를 용기로 하다 다 되네 유기로 기회 갑다 되네게 나서 유기로다 되네 다우 우다야래 안 되네게 돈내래 제사 되네자 보시 기회도 무거로 하다 마지 부 기회도 뭐니기 뭐용으로 그래서 대 강아 지거로 하다 강아 태는 무거로 데려와
så den alltså de kirurgi du kan säga alltså superkoppla de gånger den trak du
말 디세 말에 아미 조건 마치로 된디 겁라 된만이 된세대 충충을 된마 찌리하다 아니 되는 룽게 마 비자다야다 되는 갑레랭아 좀 멤비게 수 차야다 디지도 거 나지 강아 먹고요 와다 다 되는게 계산은 라고게 봐 주야다 아니 지기도 제도 아니 지 아초다 되는 게 바지 제도 겁라 안 되는게 거 동아 먹고리요 되 강아 먹고지 튀기서로다 되는게 당연히 하고 로로로시 되는 쉬고이나 제사다 기회 가서 소와 동안 잡고 먹고 용거를 했어지.
And to be clear, the suffering of birth refers specifically to being physically born as opposed to conception, where one enters into the particular realm. So if we take as an illustration birth as a human, it refers to the infant being born from their mother. So from the moment of exiting the womb, the infant experiences tremendous suffering in that it is being squeezed through a confined space into a completely new experience. And that in itself is frightening. Then it encounters things which for it are completely new and cause immense pain. This comes from the contact of being forced forced out of the mother, and then immediate contact with maybe medical staff, so the contact of touch on the very tender skin, as well at the same time, the skin for the first time is coming into contact with air. This too is a new and frightening sensation causing pain. Then once exited, and it takes its first breath, again it's a new sensation, and that being new, fear arises in that air is entering into the lungs for the first time. So this then leads to immense suffering, or visceral suffering, from the moment of physical entry into this world, and hence probably why babies aren't born with laughter but are born crying.
어두스네 다데네 여러와 선비게 다 기회 값도 당보다 기형도 값은 강아데네 여러와 선비게 삼다디 디레다 삼다디데 동아 곰세데 제가 주스네 기회 값이야 안에 가려서네 데네기 마 아밍하고니 마 데니컬 트리아다 룽기 마 대슈케다 미 라와 차야라 데네기 제데컬 초와 잡고 동아 멍고용거레세 누신 땅은 저기 디 개와들 봐 미네 되는 안델이야 동아 가르카르 용어서는 안데 기회 가서 동아 가르 용어서 되네 용을 해서 두신에 용거에서 되네 용비 юм제로다 삼다도 제바 제디 다디 디레 디기회 동아 삼바세 디레.
So then, reflecting on this first point, the first of the five is on the actual process of birth, where the infant is exiting from somewhere where they would have at least been familiar, somewhere of something, a known quantity, something that felt safe, exiting, being forced into a completely unknown experience, something completely new to them, as well as then the physical pain that is experienced. So this then is what one reflects on in the first point.
Anybody give a name and the tempers, Yang and tempers. This sometimes the person, Deniki gave it up, Mukiwa Tigarisne, Nyomo by Kiwata, Nyomo by Kiwata, Nebana, Pavig, 7 Jesu TV, Gewala, Kol Sebigi, Lesu, Lerungyang Machings, do one Judo and Mirua was, one do Julia, one do Judo. One Judo and Mirua was. And then, Jungara Mare gave a name and then Demba. You're about to go Dembas. Kiwa de name and then Demba is. Yang and but Yuba is Dembas. Did you join the Yuba is all? The Yubi Jumzen did this word in Yomova, Kiwada, Nevada, Pavig, 7 Jesu TV, Gewala, Go, Subigi, Lerung, Yamaching, Did do one Judo and Mirua was.
The text then continues. So this is the second of the 5 points. Birth is associated with, so this can be translated as negative habitual tendencies or dysfunctional habitual tendencies, because it is connected with the seeds that produce, sustain, and increase mental afflictions. Birth is unsuited to be bound to the service of virtues. That was missed. Is unsuited to being bound to the service of virtue, and it is unsuited to being controlled at will.
Nyomo kiwi tinchi gore se tanga zu lüdi yoba zanga zu le de sha kong zhong a ye ye de ngo ro ji zan lüdi de nyomo kiwi tinchi gore se ta nyomo ba ni bi tinchi gore se de di ki nyomo ba ding zu lüdi yoba zanga zu nyomo ba di du shin nyomo ba samlo de ni yo ro ba ma de de shan tin di me na ne yo ma ro ba ni bi tinchi gore se ji zan nyomo ba di ani ga so re nyomo ba ya shu che che zhuo ye gi pe wa se Yomoba Dusha Gia, Contra Gia, Najagia, the Shusha Dragi, Pewa, the 7 Dinganzuki, Yore, 7 Jesu Java, the 7 Dinganzuki, giving the Son of Buddhicula, the Yore, 7 Yores or Dakazel, Yang Yomoba Gia, Yomoba, and the Shusha Dry La Sobada, then the Yomomudi Negi, 70 Yores or the 7 Yores, Pumpu Gia de Cabla. 不业搞本来对下到黄庄来的，那个见面那的这个女把3分的也有吧？那说的，技术这话是的，第3分技术这话是的，第你这个我娘们把这的，娘们目的那的，娘们把呀修起来拍出来个3分把差的3分的也有吧？那说也把那是不的了，嘛的也把那技术这话说了，技术这话是这些话的。
So looking at the second sentence, or just the second.
Jesus Jeva said about Lama. Ning and Len. She's a ning and said, Lucim, Lugi, Ning, and Simgi, Ning, and Yomo Bata, Yomo Basha, the Ning, and let's order that.
So birth is associated with negative or dysfunctional habitual tendencies. So what is meant by this term, negative habitual tendencies, is what follows. Because it is connected with the seeds that produce, sustain, and increase mental afflictions. So again, I read that far. Because of taking birth, so the illustration we'll look at is that of a human being born, but as we saw above, it refers to the other realms too. So because of taking birth, having this body, we have the seeds that produce the mental afflictions, that the seeds that not just produce the mental afflictions, that they can sustain. So our attachment regularly arises and abides. Our anger regularly arises and abides. And that we have this body is also, the mental afflictions increase. So this is the first meaning then of the negative or dysfunctional habitual tendencies, is that we have this body as a source upon which the afflictions arise, abide, and increase.
Dene is a tangan to Ludi, Judy, then Yomo Balletine, Jawa. Dene is a Ludilatin, Yomo Beke, Sabon, chicken, Yuva, Yomo Baya, Peata, Yomo Bajeta, Denegi, Sabon Yudibas, and Yomo Mutine, Sabon, do Yudibare. Dene is a carriers, Gawala, Col Sebegi, and Leruya, me, sit down to do Les Rua said that Kawala Kassichevena Ganga, Dinigi Matevasi Uroda. Chisadan to Ludi letters, Chichevan, and Lamsan Kalete, Nayumana Kamate Yungura, Chisa, go Les Miro, go as in the Java Chevasi Uroda, Dinigi Java Chebi, it means Ganga Mate Gidi, Mazole Yomares, Carsone, Jigge, Karichevi, to send a char, send a Subola Kamatega, the Duscomja, the Subola Kamatega, and Dinigi, Chikarina. Lagaro Chena Kamate, Jungur watches that give Java Druella, give Java Druella, and the chick Kamate, Jungur, the Kamate, the Karsane, the Bucoron Yomo on the Kiawade, Mola, and the Yomo by the nigger Sabon, the Yudi by Enza, Gin Digi, essert, called Mirum set this one. And then, they did want you to Miruma, so the Tangan Supoti, Kase de Hege, Sosuki, some time when I want you your matters, so want your matters, cook Korongi, round Korongi, Chiki, usual, Madame, or the Mashiva or some Mashiva child, I can go much of a change, or some Shenji, due to Yama, so want you your matter, Korongi, or Kandisina Korongi, Simbashi to usual waters, just that. Due to the one you Miruma, the Tangan Pumbo Kiwi, Pumbo Tiki, Guinness or the Garsene Bene, Giene, Gavin, and the chick got a Chevana Ganga Tayon, and the chick Mativa Nena, the Yonde among Muyon, and the chick Sosuke, chick, Bear Shenji, Duena, to have one semi about her, Rahama, Kitchi, Pagurche, can watch out of Gores, and the chick got the Nicky Mashiva, or some night, Rahaki, me called Shidra Chagon, so that we do the one cure, so want to cure Beares, says I want to cure him. Did you get the Harris and it? Does that deep Pumbo give Pumbo, Kiwati, Gun, the your ass or that? The same signal that is Kiwa, Pumbo, Kiwa city does, didn't I Kiwala? Kasa Horan Kiwa Lemba de la Jun Carriers and Dinit in the Yores, that Subo that castle, that Subuko de Miro Sulia Kangati, Semla Kangati, Yunguru, Adinka Yunguru, go to Mirua said, Sem Gawala Samba and Namia orders on the go to Mirua. Then Subu Kangati Mirua said Yunguru, due to the Sosuke Kazi do some Naya, someone around me, but Udra, Subu Udra. Chisadi, Queen, Semda. Suboniga Yungur, and the Kiwa de la Denekin Denis Yore, said the Q by the West Warwada.
Birth is associated with negative habitual tendencies because, as explaining this term, because it is connected with the seeds that produce, sustain, and increase mental afflictions. So again, the very reason one takes birth is because of the causes, primarily that of afflictions. So as afflictions led to the accumulation of the causes the propelling karmic imprint, as well as the afflictions led to the ripening of that karmic imprint, then we take rebirth with these negative habitual tendencies, which have the one aspect of having the seeds that produce, sustain, and increase mental afflictions. So the reason that we have the seeds that produce, sustain, and increase mental afflictions is because of these negative habitual tendencies. We've taken this rebirth due to the afflictions. And a second fault, a second understanding of the negative habitual tendencies is that birth is unsuited to being bound to the service of virtue. So if we take first our body, we know that our body is not ideal for the engaging in virtue, in that we experience unwanted problems and difficulties. It is difficult with this body to engage in virtue. We become sick, we become uncomfortable, and like from this, obstacles arising to engaging in various activities, whether it's sitting, whether it's moving around, whatever we may be doing. This body is not ideal. Obstacles arise. Why? Because the cause is of afflictions. Therefore, it is contaminated. So the body is not ideally suited to engaging in virtue. And so too, of course, with our mind, is also often dominated by the afflictions. And both of these, our body and our mind, the third point now of the meaning of negative habitual tendencies, is it is unsuited to be controlled at will. We do not have control over our body. We think we have control over our body, but we cannot exercise our will freely over our body. We do not have free will over our body. If we did, we could stop aging. We could prevent illness. We wouldn't die. Our body would never degenerate. But we do not have that control. So too with our mind. And again, all of this comes down to that this rebirth we have taken, so the suffering of birth, has come about independent on afflictions. So therefore this term, dysfunctional or negative habitual tendencies, our mind and our body, is dysfunctional in the sense that it is not ideal for engaging in virtue because of its cause. And being negative often tends towards the negative, tends towards further afflictions, afflictions abiding and increasing. So on that point, we can stop for this morning. Thank you. Do you have camera? But we'll take questions first. Cameron?
Just on that last point regarding the body being associated with the affliction and arising out of the affliction, I'm imagining that all pervasive suffering is directly associated with that. Is that correct?
So the body comes from the causes accumulated under the afflictions, and I assume that's also associated with all pervasive suffering of conditionality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So because the cause for this rebirth has come about due to afflictions, therefore the karma is contaminated, and therefore one will necessarily suffer when that result ripens, wherever, in whatever realm within samsara one is born. So therefore it is associated with non-associated compounded suffering. not that. The suffering of uncompounded suffering, all pervasive uncompounded suffering. So yes, it is, because so it's that's what you brought up is something much broader. This is now here a smaller aspect of that.
It is only a part of all pervasive suffering.
Because you're just looking at birth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just looking at birth. Yeah. That's it, Paul?
Just a quick question. There is parents and children in the prayer realm, or embryos, and also the form realm. Is there there's no womb birth there, is that right? Or what sort of birth would it be there?
So what sort of birth in the preta and some of the form realm gods, yeah?
Form realm gods.
Yeah, because there are children, so therefore, yeah.
Ida la ngaje yore, ngaje yosare, bu ngaje yosare. Da sugam la ngaje peshi yumare. Bu jiza le bu se ne la jiao dangbo len de le bu se la yin ruwa. Zui dangbo len de dangbo je de bu ruwa de je san de go lo ha xie qin ba de gen guo zhe ge se gen bu le ge ma lo de le bu le yo de dangbo ta le ya zui结完了，就给了，就给了的，那当我结完了要对的呢，结完了呢，你们今年送去的，的不来给你了，当然按这个必须当的，当然是对比刚才的，必须当过了哇。啊，你买的，数不穷穷的，旁边有点买的，或数不的切上几块的。一大啦，有的不按揭的，一大按揭原来有的。
For pretas, there are two forms of birth, either from a womb or spontaneous. And there are children, as you said, in the preta realm. But for gods in the form realm, there are no children. There is no birth from a womb, and there are no parents. So those who could be called children would be those who have recently appeared in the God realm, but they wouldn't be children like of diminutive size later growing. But because they knew in the God realm, then one could call them children in that they are new arrivals. But they're not children in the way that we understand them, with parents and needing to grow up.